Bilingual programs, on the other hand, see, they don't have to follow the basis because they're not part of the school. See, that is the so-called extracurricular, o inglês no contraturno, right? So the point about bilingual programs is that they haven't got a curriculum. The curriculum is solely based on the coursebook. So the coursebook dictates what you're going to teach. I don't think this is very correct. You know, how many kids from so many different realities will consume these coursebooks, right? But they work. The thing is, why do they work? Because they usually carry out thematically based projects in L2. There are many successful examples here, you know. I know this one big publisher, they work very heavily with make a culture, with technology tends to be involved and effectively involved. And the English courses, I pretty much know that all of us learned English this way here, right? I come from the culture because I was born in the culture, practically. I was born there in the classroom, you know, and then I became a teacher as a student, then a teacher, and yeah, something wasn't working that well. I mean, if it was working really, we would have better results today. What is the percentage of Brazilians that can, in fact, communicate in English at, say, B1 level? Something is not quite right? Maybe we have learned because we're freaks of language. That's my opinion, you know. We like it so much that we ended up learning it. But we are exceptions to the rule. So, in these contexts, there is no curriculum. Whatever they teach is determined by the school, determined by the book that changes every now and then. L2, and this is the heart of the method, L2 is the object of learning. So it is an objective in itself. I'm here to learn language for the sake of learning language. What am I going to do with this language? Not very sure, right? They're language-oriented courses, and because of the fact that they're so completely, totally independent of educational context, age-mixed classrooms, we know that, right? So, do you yourselves recollect when you were sitting down in the classroom, you were 16 and there was a 40-year-old person sharing the class, and you know why this just doesn't work? Because we are at different cognitive levels. We are talking about the stages of development of the mental, of the brain. See? So, there is no room for interdisciplinarity. There is no room for learning anything other than English. Does it work? It does. I am here, I'm talking to you. That was the way I learned English. And I bet all of us, right? This is our context. And yeah, it might be that bilingual education is not a baby in other countries as it is here. But see, is this a moment that we have to simply ignore everything we have done and start over? I want you to, 1 minute, okay, talk to someone next to you. And have a look at all these approaches, you know, English as a foreign language teaching approaches, we know them all. Do we have to throw this all away? Which of those approaches, 1 minute, do you think we can incorporate, should incorporate? 1 minute.
Nice meeting you.
Feelings, impressions, ideas, because this was only 1 minute, right? I want to hear from you. What are your impressions?
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. I think we are going to inherit much of what has been done. We are going to inherit. We don't throw knowledge and scientific practice away. I think why we are here transitioning to bilingual education is because things worked at some level, but now the society changed. That's why methodologies change as well.
There are two things we cannot do. Which are the two approaches we cannot, under no circumstances, bring to bilingual education? Grammar translation.
Yes.
And audiolingual. See, I've been teaching teachers who are trying to bridge from EFL to EAL, and it is so common that when they hear bilingual education, the comprehension is what is bilingual is what is coming out of my mouth, not what is going on in my student's brain. You know, so when you come up with concepts such as translanguaging, and well, it's the same thing, translanguaging and translation are the same thing. They're not. Those are the many comprehensions of many understandings, and a pity that those understandings might be just a little too shallow, you know. But yeah, we have to keep on building upon prior knowledge, because this is what we do in education, right? So, you tell me you have the Mentimeter for us to play, okay? A few definitions here. Which is the term we use to describe the study of English by non-native speakers in countries where English is not dominant? Which is our case. You can say it out loud, or you can vote on Mentimeter, up to you. Right? And what is ESL?
Context of immigrants
Yes.
in a country where English is the dominant language.
And what is EAL? What is EAL? English as an additional language. What is it? Those concepts are still hard to, you know, so rather than coming up with a theoretical definition, I chose to show you an example of how things change if you start treating English as an additional language. So, in the old days, EFL, old days, these are examples of learning outcomes, all right? So, the times of CELTA, I bet you all remember that. This would be a learning outcome, right? By the end of this lesson, I would like my students to be better able to use the present perfect. How many times have we written objectives in this way? Back then, we were way more concerned with what the teacher does. Let's change the paradigm. Let's shift. Now, those learning outcomes, they must be behavioral oriented. Why is that? If I don't see the kids doing that, if it's not observable, I cannot measure. And if I cannot measure, how do I know that what I taught was effective? And how do I know that they ended up learning what I wanted them to learn? So see, I'm still talking about the very same present perfect, but look at how the point of view changes. By the end of this instructional unit, learners are expected to describe memorable trips to communicate life experiences. Meaning, and these learning outcomes, by the way, have to be shared with students at the beginning of every single lesson you deliver. Because they must know, they must get acquainted, acknowledge what they're actually learning. That thing, what is in it for me? Because if you tell them, oh, today we're learning the present perfect, this means nothing. See, this is the past. This is the EFL world. Now we are talking about the EAL world. Kids are not black and white anymore. Things have changed drastically. So, to my mind, and this is the best definition for English as an additional language. As I said before, I heard in this event many times that English is a tool. I go beyond that. I firmly believe that languages, and in our specific case, English, it fosters identities. So English as an additional language enables the students to learn academic content and encourage participation in a wide range of activities that stimulate communication in an environment which reflects the cultural and linguistic background of L1. That is something we have to take into consideration. We cannot remove the Portuguese speaker from this frame. It's never worked like that, right? Think about our students. Students are exposed to language which is appropriate to their level of development. Now I'm talking about cognition. I'm talking about the thinking processes, which is meaningful, based on concrete experiences, and supported by cognitive challenges. And this is the best definition of what English as an additional language is all about. Yeah, what we advocate is that you will build, of course, it is important for us to care about the quality of the language that this child is learning. We are building English on top of Portuguese, but they go together, hand in hand, because there is no way to keep languages, and no matter how many languages you know, in this brain. There are no drawers, right? Knowledge is built like that. So we're talking about knowledge, and we're talking about identities. So, too much is said about CLIL, right? We see that CLIL, everybody says, oh, I'm a CLIL teacher, But, before you say you're a CLIL teacher, do you know what is behind CLIL? The underpinning principles of the very difference between bilingualism and bilingual education, because there is a difference, right? So in CLIL, the students learn academic content and English as a second language or as a foreign language. Mind you, the pioneers of CLIL, they were right. It all began with content teachers who were looking for more effective ways of teaching content in Europe. The UK came later. Language teachers, English teachers came later. All of that was the end of the 90s, right? At the end of the 90s, when David Marsh and Duke Coyle wrote the first book on CLIL, it was being born as the only possible solution, right? So that was the birth, I would say, of English being treated as an additional language. That was when we started talking about this concept. It draws, you see, if I ask you, is CLIL a way to teach English. No, that's not what we're talking about. CLIL is about quality education. CLIL is not, the magical solution for your child to be speaking English at the age of 4 years old. So it's not about learning English. It's about the quality of the education. Learning outcomes in the case of CLIL, they integrate content and language, and they focus on interdisciplinarity. Many of the teachers I teach, they ask me, but Karina, do I have to go back to university? Do I have to study geography? Do I have to study mathematics? No. Providing you do have peers, partners, and your school is open-minded and provides you with this, helping hand so that you can talk to those peers. You can share information, right? A solid curriculum also helps. So you tell me, yeah, CLIL is by all means the thing, the approach that most people use in Europe, but is it the only one? Yes, no, who knows? It would be just too narrow if it was only one, right? Can you name any other approaches which
CBI. CBI.
Yeah, content language based, that comes before CLIL, even before CLIL. But do you know anything that came after CLIL? EMI. See, EAL era educação básica. EMI for university students. It is a way to treat English. It's the way you see English. But in terms of approaches, teaching approaches, EMI is not a teaching approach. There is something new that came out 21 or 22? No, 21. Yeah, 22 is this year. Are you lost because of the pandemic too, just like me? Yeah, a little context before I show you the magic name. So, CLIL has indeed, if you are to think of the number of people, the schools all over the globe using CLIL, see, we can't understand CLIL as a straitjacket. Rather than that, it's a very fluid approach. And it's obvious that CLIL has brought to light the intricacies of teaching content in tandem with learning an additional language. But, as I said before, and that is a conclusion that Ducoil herself discusses, is it enough to only understand the language? Is it enough so if I get the content, if I understand the content, well, am I going to do well, in terms of language production? So, new research shows that CLIL does work, but what they have noticed is that the quality of this language production was getting lower and lower and lower. Even the quality of the teacher's English, So with poor input, what happens with output? So, what came next is something called Kappa model. If you know Roy Lister, I'm a big fan of Roy Lister. Roy Lister is awesome. I'm going to show you the book, this one that where you can investigate into the Kappa model. So Kappa model, which stands for contextualization, awareness, practice, and autonomy. It is a little more advanced in this concern. So how about the quality of the language that my students produce? See, for the cover model, the counterbalanced approaches, I have one more slide to talk about that. The students are instructed through an interplay between language, now thoroughly treated as additional, and the academic content. One doesn't exist without the other. They're together, they're present at the same time in the same class. Kappa model draws on the principles of reflective learning, favoring something that Roy Lister calls depth of processing. See, you know the Bloom taxonomy, right? And the C for cognition in clear, right? God, will we ever manage to get to higher order thinking skills? I read curriculums, and I see identify, name, and list. Forever! I mean, you see, how about the thinking processes? How deep you as a teacher, you can go? Because if you are there in the shallow investigation, you're going to, how about the impact on your students? See? The Kappa model assumes that meta-linguistic awareness is the prerequisite to biliteracy development. See? Do you know the definition for meta-linguistic awareness? So, meta-linguistic awareness is the ability to treat language as an object. See, and it's organized into strands. There is word awareness, there is phonologic awareness, there is syntactic awareness, and my personal favorite, morphologic awareness. Word formation! See? And the Kappa model also says that the learning outcomes are deeply intertwined with corrective feedback. It all happens together at the same time. And it looks like an hourglass. There is a moment, indeed, that you stop and you analyze the language. It's not only content. Because if so, those kids will never become proficient. Oh my God, when I began in this life, I was afraid of saying the word proficiency. Afraid, because, oh my, no, it's only linguistic repertoire. Yeah, I acknowledge the need of all this, but how about the quality of this language? See? This is the book. Roy Lister wrote this book with Diane Teddick last year, and the scaffolding language development, immersion, and dual language classrooms. They refer to it as the Kappa model, but the umbrella name is the counterbalanced approaches. So this is what they found out, that there seems to be a call for an ongoing shift in emphasis to prevent either language or content from taking a disproportionate role in the curriculum. And this happens. This happens because even in clear contexts and effective schools, bilingual schools, there is more focus either on one thing or on the other thing. By and large, the focus is more on language because, you see, the paradigm shift here is, but they're not going to be able to understand, Karina. They're not going to follow me because they don't have the language. So what do? You wait? That's what Roy Lister has been saying. They highlight, Roy and Diane, they're good friends of mine, as you can see. They highlight that in order to optimize learning, there must be a balance between focus on meaning and focus on form, alongside with a focus on the development of metalinguistic awareness. This is what is newer than CLIL. But even Ducoil herself, look at the latest book that she wrote. This is this year. It came out this year, okay? Ducoil says, ever since CLIL pioneering advocates started translating their 4Cs framework into daily practice, CLIL programs have considerably increased all over. People state they're using CLIL, but how can they be so sure? The multitude of contexts for CLIL to blossom also led to an array of different interpretations, models, frameworks, points of reference, and theoretical underpinnings across national, regional, and local boundaries. Which might mean that CLIL is indeed very fluid. After all, Bauman, amen, okay, so we are living those other times, right? But those interpretations of CLIL, you see the pioneering content, communication, cognition, I mean, are we actually doing that? Or are we more in a straitjacket, trying to find a solution to an approach, rather than teaching, in fact? So, as a program leader for teaching bilingual learners, when I did my induction for this course, we get very intimate with many documents published by UNESCO. And these two organizations here, which represent UNESCO, they say that notwithstanding the influence of factors such as social economic status, home, community, student learning is strongly influenced by what and how we teach, no matter what. So what we do is paramount for their learning, see? So there is this lady who wrote this one paper, Helen Timperley. In fact, that's a series of booklets that UNESCO published. They're aimed at teacher development, okay? This one I use by Helen Timperley is a lady from Auckland. She compiled the 10 most important features of effective teachers. Okay, and that is not me. It is UNESCO talking about that. For the sake of this presentation, I chose to summarize it into 6. Okay, here they are. Effective teachers have a positive impact on the valued student outcomes, hence on the quality of education. There are no good schools without good teachers. Effective teachers demonstrate sound theoretical knowledge, evidence-informed inquiry skills, and supportive organizational conditions. Which means, if the school doesn't help, if the school doesn't back you up, if the school only keeps demanding more and more and more tasks, you will never be effective. Effective teachers are more knowledgeable and skillful at integrating active learning and worthwhile content to achieve the so important values, student outcomes. When I say values, I'm actually talking about, you see, the student has to acknowledge that what they are learning is important for their lives. It's going to change their lives. This is the perception. Do we see this in our students? Effective teachers move away from traditional teaching approaches and move towards current underpinning approaches which are more responsive to learning. They also count, and that is the role of the school, they count on multiple opportunities to learn how new teaching approaches have a positive impact on the student learning outcomes. So see, if you haven't got a coordinator who trusts you, who helps you, who gives you feedback, when you're observed, it is a construction more than a judgment. See, that's what we have to look for. That is our aim. We all want to become better teachers, right? Effective teachers seek expertise, and that might be a little controversial, I admit, but this is what Helen said, UNESCO said, that effective teachers seek expertise which is external to the school, to challenge existing assumptions and develop skills associated with positive outcomes for students. Because what if your coordinator also needs to learn? How will you, foster an environment of growth mindsets in a school if the policy is judgmental, right? So the external expertise, how did we get to this external expertise? It's Cambridge, right? For us, right? Go on. So this is the conclusion of the paper I showed you. UNESCO suggests that there must be a cyclical learning process that involves everybody, all the members of the school community. See, we should begin by asking ourselves, what educational outcomes are values for our students, and how are our students doing in relation to those outcomes? You determine the learning outcomes according to many other documents, okay? You are not going to cook it out of your brain, right? Then, what knowledge and skills do we teachers need to enable our students to bridge the gap between current understandings? Mathematics is boring. Physics is boring. And valued outcomes. I want to learn about Chernobyl. I always think of physics. Because it was something I never learned at school. Really. Never learned. Then, how can leaders, mentors, and peers promote the learning of teachers to bridge the gap for our students? Engagement of teachers in further learning to deepen professional knowledge and refine their skills. I am very much in favor of schools who help teachers pay for courses, right? After all, they don't have to provide us with everything, but give me a helping hand, right? Gone are the days that the schools would pay our salary and our course and our exams and certificates, right? You remember that? Engagement of students in new learning experiences. This is what happens, and it's got to happen in this cycle. See? Now, what has been the impact of our changed actions on our students? If this is a cycle, if this is a learning process that must be cyclical, we must see a difference in our students. This is what UNESCO says. So, rate yourselves. How ready do you think you are to shift the paradigm? You know, are you just comfortable teaching EFL and I'm gonna keep doing, because it's always worked. I mean, it's always worked. Why do I have to change? Right? There are levels of knowledge when you start investigating into bilingual education. There are many different levels of familiarity, you know. So it probably, if you're asking yourself, how the heck do I begin? What do I do first? So I don't hide it from anyone, and I don't want to sound like someone here who is selling courses, you know. But what we at São Paulo Open Center, what we believe is, there are routes, there are different possibilities in this journey, right? You can begin small, and then ideally, you put it all into practice. So, yeah, those are the courses that I teach, all right? They're very short courses, 3 days only. Does anybody here remember the time of the refreshers? Forma Cultura Inglesa teachers, you know? And we would come back with a few ideas in mind. Oh, I want to experiment with this. I want to experiment with that. Highly recommended for you to get to know approaches for bilingual education, because we'll be more able to name things, okay, to come up with the definitions. Then, CLIL. At São Paulo Open Center, our CLIL is actually, you know, it ends with the TKT Club. So, this is not the aim of the course, of course, because if it were, see, it is only a consequence. It's the same thing we say about Cambridge exams for our kids, right? It's got to be a consequence of a course well done, well delivered, right? And the certificate in teaching bilingual learners, which has, I'm here with my partner and mentor, you know, Cesar and me. I'm the program leader and a mentor. This is the moment that we hold the teacher's hand. No, I mean it. You know, it is so personalized. It is so, if the teacher, you know, because we are bloody human beings. You see, we have different ways of learning. We have different paces, right? So, how am I going to film my lesson if I have to deliver content? Because if I deliver language, I'm going to fail. You see? Yeah. As I said before, I don't need to be here selling products, you know. But this is indeed a course that changed my life. It changed my life. It changed my life when I was doing it. I was being inducted, and then we started running the course. And what we see is what teachers say, the paradigm has changed, you know. So they're not teaching the present perfect anymore. They are being able to deliver lessons that meet values student learning outcomes. And results are getting better. And we are all here to learn together, you know. Because if there is something that is still crawling in this country, is bilingual education. And we should be gathering to make science together. And to make those curriculums, those bilingual curriculums, actually become true. And thank you. Am I punctual? Do we have time for questions? Thank you so much, everybody. You go to the São Paulo Open Center website, okay? You'll find my information there. And in case